Hello Tigers, and happy March Madness. This week on The Source, we'll be talking about our current COVID status and doing bracketology with DePauw sophomore and basketball manager, Andy Wessman. This is Drew Cosgray, and you are watching The Source. DePauw's status regarding the COVID-19 pandemic is still blue. This means masks are optional in residences, Hoover Dining Hall, university building, common spaces, and in meetings and during most university-sponsored events. Masks remain required in the following situations: during classes in labs and healthcare settings such as DePauw Health Wellness Center, counseling services, and athletic training rooms. Event or lectures where speakers whose contracts require audience members must be masked. Now I'd like to turn it over to my discussion with Andy as we discuss March Madness. Hello everyone, I'm here with sophomore Andy Wessman, who is also the basketball manager at DePauw University for the men's basketball team. And you know, Andy, he started up, and he's the president and founder of Sports Management Group in the Management Fellows Program, and he's also interning at Prize Picks this semester. And so when I heard that, you know, there was no one else I wanted to bring on here to go through his picks through March Madness, which is personally my favorite time of the year, and as I can probably guess, it's probably your favorite time of the year too.
Yes, sir. I'm ready to rumble.
Yeah, you're ready to rumble? All right. So as you can see, we have the bracket right here. Please don't judge my tracing skills. I did the best that I could. So we're actually going to start off in the Sweet 16, but before we get to the Sweet 16, I'd like you to explain some of your early picks, whether those be upsets or teams you have high hopes for. If you could just do that real fast for me.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a quick look here at the western half of the bracket. I have two pretty major upsets with Vermont making it to the Sweet 16 as a 13 seed, beating the 4 seed Arkansas and the 12th seed New Mexico State. They're a great young program with a lot of able-bodied shooters, great defenders. I think they have what it takes to win at least 2 games in March Madness. And then the other big upset in the western half of the bracket is either Rutgers or Notre Dame making it to the Sweet 16. They have a play-in game that's being played before the start of the tournament, but I think it's more so a testament to the poor competition they'd be facing before. Facing Alabama early on, it's not really much of a problem, and then I still think they're going to be able to beat Texas Tech, so that should be no issue at all. Yeah. Those are two of the major upsets that I have. The only other major upset I have is in the southern half of the bracket, which Drew could point at.
Right here.
It's Michigan, who's had a very rough year and is 11 seed, making it all the way to the Sweet 16. I think they just have the experience and the raw talent to be able to go out there and win some games, but I'd also like to say there's just as much of a chance as they find a way to lose in the first round.
Yeah, no, I find that, sorry to interrupt, but I just find that really interesting. You say Michigan goes to the Sweet 16 just because there's been a lot of discussion about whether they should have even made the tournament or not. So, yes, but you can go back to explaining your picks. I just want to make that point.
Of course. So now that we've gotten through the upsets a bit, let's start with making my picks for the Sweet 16 and the rest of the tournament. Here, Drew, you can write these down as I talk about them, but that's my fault. But the first pick is Gonzaga beating Vermont. Over Vermont. Just a pure talent thing. They have Chet Holmgren, who is the presumptive #1 pick in the NBA draft next year, and Vermont, it just can't compete with a school of the stature of Gonzaga. And then my other pick, relatively the same answer as the Gonzaga pick. I'm picking Duke over Rutgers and Notre Dame. This is more so just because Duke's a very well-rounded team. Another great NBA center that's going to be drafted this year, Paolo Banchero. Just so much talent, and this is going to be in a fantastic Elite 8 matchup, probably the best matchup of the entire tournament, which is Gonzaga versus Duke. Really a 50-50 ball here, but I'm going to go with Gonzaga making the Final Four just due to more recent March Madness success, and I just think that Chet Holmgren's the best player in the country. Now we're going to jump down here to the eastern part of the bracket. This is where we're going to see one of my biggest upsets of the tournament. I have UCLA beating Baylor. Even though Baylor is last year's champion and has a lot of talent on the team, I think that UCLA has a lot of veteran experience. They have 2 wings who are either a junior or a senior with a lot of talent and experience playing at the highest level of basketball. And I think Baylor lost a lot of their team to the NBA draft last year. So I think that UCLA beats Baylor. And then Purdue versus Kentucky, difficult game for the Boilermakers. It's going to come down to if Jaden Ivey can put it together, and I think he is. I think Purdue beats Kentucky in the Sweet 16.
See, I'm so happy I have Andy on my show because I'm a huge Purdue Boilermaker fan, and thank you for having faith in my boys. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
You know, and the sad thing is that just how I had faith in your boys to beat Kentucky, I do not have faith in them to beat UCLA. I have UCLA going to the Final Four over Purdue. I think that, Purdue has great guards and great big men, I just don't think they can keep up with the versatility that UCLA has on the wing. So I have UCLA going to the Final Four.
All right.
And I don't think that's going to be the last we hear of UCLA. So jumping over here to the southern side of the bracket, definitely the most interesting side of the bracket. Any team could get out of here just based off of how they played this year. I have Arizona beating Illinois in a really close game. Very similar in terms of skill sets. It's just going to be whoever has the better night. And then I have Villanova beating Michigan quite easily. I think it's the end of Michigan's road where they've had a good run for the year that they had. Maybe we'll save some jobs on the coaching staff, but won't be anything more. And then I have Villanova beating Arizona to go to the Final Four. I think Arizona's a great team, very athletic, very physical. But at the end of the day, I just don't think they have the tournament experience to be able to go up with a perennial championship contender like Villanova. And then we can jump down to the Midwest side of the bracket. Second actually massive upset pick here. I have Iowa beating Kansas in the Sweet 16. Iowa's been absolutely red hot to end the year. You know, winning the Big Ten, beating the best of the best teams in this in the Big Ten. It's just they have so much heat behind them. If they can keep it going, there's no stopping them. And then jumping down to the bottom of the Midwest, I have Wisconsin beating Auburn. Auburn has Jabari Smith. He'll go top 3 in the NBA draft next year. I just think Wisconsin's a really gritty team led by Johnny Davis. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, if Jabari Smith has a bad game, this could even end up being a blowout. And then I have Wisconsin beating Iowa. I think that Wisconsin can get a little bit of revenge for not winning the Big Ten. And, you know, Johnny Davis is one of the best players in the country, shoots really well, shifty. He'll go top 10 in the draft next year, and I think Iowa's streak just ends there.
And now we have your Final Four. So over out of the West region, we have Gonzaga. Out of the East region, we have UCLA. Out of the South region, we have Villanova. And in the Midwest region, we have Wisconsin. So that's Andy's Final Four right here. So now it's time to make probably arguably the biggest picks out of the bracket. So
yeah, well, this is a really difficult pick for me because Chet Holmgren is my favorite player in all of college basketball. I think he's complete as a shooter, one of the best defenders, averages over 3 blocks a game. It's absurd. But I have to trust my gut. I'm going with the upset pick. UCLA is going to beat Gonzaga in the Final Four to make the national championship game.
Okay.
And then this is a very interesting matchup. I don't think most people would have this as their Final Four with Villanova and Wisconsin. Taking out a lot of the big contenders already, but I'm going to go with Villanova beating Wisconsin. Goes down to, you know, just tournament experience, very well-run team, great system. And I think it'll be a really close game, but I think Villanova gets the edge. And then for, you know, the national championship game, very unconventional game here. 2 teams that going into the bracket aren't very picked by a lot of people to win the championship, especially UCLA. And I think UCLA this year is going to be this year's national champion.
All right, the Bruins.
You know, I'm a big fan of how they choose to run their offense and, you know, their defensive versatility. So with a surprising pick, I have UCLA winning. I think it's going to be a close game, but I don't think it'll ever be a question that UCLA will be this year's national champion.
That's definitely an interesting take on the Final Four. I know in my Final Four, I have Purdue, Gonzaga, Arizona, and Iowa. That's my Final Four, and I'm hoping the Boilers can pull it out and get its first ever national championship. So Boiler Ball, I hope you're watching this because I'm pulling for your boys. Andy, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and going through your bracket with me and explaining all your picks. Always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm going to shoot it back to the studio, so thank you once again. Thank you, Andy, for taking the time to come and speak to us about this year's March Madness. I sure hope Purdue wins it all. I'm really pulling for them. Boiler Ball, we saw it right here. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's it for this week's episode. I'm Drew Cosgray, reporting live from D3 TV.